Hey everyone, welcome to the most opinionated space podcast on the internet.
Ad Astra, the podcast where we talk about the intersection between space, policy, and technology.
I'm Jack.
And I'm Newton.
I have a Master's of Public Policy degree with a concentration in Science and Space Policy.
And I'm a PhD in Computer Science and an all-around tech geek.
All right, so a couple announcements before we get started with this week's episode. So the first thing, be sure to vote for your favorite t-shirt design on the Ad Astra Facebook page. We're going to have an image that you can vote on in the next couple days. So by the time you are hearing this episode air, there will already be something on the Facebook page. So go there, vote for your favorite design, and we will announce the winner in the next couple weeks. I guess so. Sort of on the flip side of fun Ad Astra news is I'm sure a lot of you have seen the posts from your friends and family members. I guess it's called the Me Too campaign.
Hashtag Me Too, or
hashtag Me Too, or just saying Me Too. It sort of started. I think it was the Weinstein allegations, or I guess. I don't know if it's been a conviction yet,
or all of human history.
but this specific campaign was stirred recently by, I think there was something going on Twitter, where a person was banned for calling out Weinstein, who I actually have no idea who this person is, but he's from all accounts a sack of shit. And he Tom, you need to bleep that out.
No, he's a sack of shit, and we will have a very special episode of the Straight Up podcast regarding him.
Good.
Next week, so go on. Sorry.
Anyway, so there's been this whole campaign where women specifically have been sharing the words Me Too to signify that they too have been they are survivors of sexual harassment, violence, or assault. And I have seen, I think just in this week alone, at least 20 friends of mine who have very publicly not just made the statement Me Too, but told the story, and the emotion has evoked the emotion behind what those words mean for them.
Mm-hmm. And for the record, it was Rose McGowan who was one of the first women to be named as a victim of the Harvey Weinstein sex scandal. She was the one who was blocked from Twitter. So,
that's where this all started. Was she? Rose was blocked from Twitter, and there was a whole sort of backlash against Twitter and against the whole situation, saying that let's actually take this seriously for once. Obviously we didn't take it seriously enough to completely bar a certain person from becoming the highest elected official in the land, but that's neither here nor there on this podcast. But
let's be honest, he's not nearly the first person of his ilk to be in the White House.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that's part of what this whole campaign is about. So go ahead. Not to keep interrupting.
Yeah, it's okay.
I could get on a soapbox about this whole thing, but I'm not going to do that.
That's another podcast altogether, right there. But so sort of this Me Too campaign is sort of coming just in time for my, if you can believe it, 24th birthday, which is coming up on Wednesday, so the day that this is airing. So if you have just had the gut reaction to wish me happy birthday, don't, because I need you instead to donate to a wonderful organization called Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, RAINN for short. RAINN is a wonderful organization. I've worked with them before on a number of issues, and they work on the local, state, federal level to secure services for survivors of sexual violence, securing them transportation to the hospital, securing kits for them to use. Just they create this support network for survivors of sexual violence. And I just thought, with everything that's going on, that we should not be celebrating another orbit around the sun, but rather we need to be putting our goodwill and cash to good use. So I personally am going to donate, you don't have to do this, but I'm personally going to donate $1 for every single Me Too post I see on my newsfeed. I know it's kind of kitschy, but like it just that just kind of sounded right to me. And right now I'm actually when I wrote the script for this episode, I was at $20 and I'm currently at $25 that I will be donating. I will make a public post about how much I donated. Once, I think October 30th was the day that Facebook ended my fundraiser, that they said that the fundraiser was going to end, or the default, I guess, is October 30th. So on October 30th, look out for a Facebook post from me talking about how much I donated, what it means to me, and what you can do in the future. But until
and you know
then,
what, folks? This is breaking news. But we're going to do this live. We're going to double that because for every Me Too that I see, I will donate $1 as well. So on the Ad Astra podcast, Ad Astra will be donating $1 per host per post that each of the hosts sees. We'll have to come up with a better name for that.
Per host, per post.
Yes, I think it's a great campaign that you decided to do for your birthday, Jack, instead of just celebrating an orbit, trying to make it a better one. So
yeah,
more power to you.
Yeah, I mean it's an issue that's near and dear to my heart. I have a lot of very close friends who have been affected by this horrible situation, and there's no going back, right? You can't take that back. But this is for all of the times in the future that someone could maybe not get sexually harassed on the street. I mean, I think the statistics are overwhelming. It's like 1 in 3 women experiences sexual harassment or attempted sexual assault in their lifetimes. I mean, and I guess part of this whole issue is, you don't have to have a daughter or have to have a mother or a sister to understand that this is an issue, but it helps put it in a bit more perspective. I mean, yes, women are people. We should just say that. But I mean, for me, I'm doing it for all the people in my life who I know who have been who are survivors of this horrible situation, and I just hope that future people in my life never have to deal with this. So I guess I'll get off my soapbox now. It's time to talk about space policy and technology. But yeah, if you go to the first link in the show notes, is the public Facebook fundraiser that I'm doing. As of recording this episode, we have raised $60, and that's excluding the $25 coming from me and the soon to be announced amount from Newton. I mean, it's certainly going to be above 25 for me as well.
It's certainly going to be above 25 for me as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through the list. I think closer to October 30th.
The worst part for me was just sort of, and I think part of this came with that campaign. But one of the worst parts is just sort of like how it's not surprising. It's just effing sad. Like every time you see another one on Facebook, like many of them I already knew about, but I mean it's just depressing. there are some, and I mean even this is not something that happens in a vacuum. I mean, Newton, I mean you I'm sure can attest that we have been told by many of people that they have experienced harassment or assault, and it never gets. I assume harassment everyone, but it never gets easier with the number of people that tell you they've been assaulted. That's the one that
and I know this is something that we should do more often, but I figured we should take this opportunity while we have it to publicize it as much as possible. The strength behind the Me Too campaign lies in the people who are participating. And if I can participate by supporting the work financially, I will. I want to be as good an ally to the cause as possible. Just tell me where to be, how much to donate. I'll be there.
And let us know. Let us know and post if you think there are other campaigns that are gaining ground that you think we should be a part of. Feel free to post on our website or Twitter. So
we should
we'll be pretty responsive.
We should maybe make this a regular thing where we talk about the issues facing us and our what did Tom call them? The Ad Astronauts.
We should do that.
So let us know what is on your mind, what issues you want us to take up. We are obviously we've already dedicated about 10 minutes to to this topic, and we've done even longer for topics of human security in Puerto Rico, in Florida, in Houston. So let's use our soapbox while we can and help as many people as we can.
Yep. All right, on to the show.
So
in latest from Washington, we are going to be covering NASA discussing potential partnerships with Russia. We talked about that a little bit last week. Why an article discussing why send humans in the first place, as well as a new NASA caucus that's taking shape in the House. In our space news highlight of the week, there's been a major astrophysics event that has occurred based on our newfound capability to detect gravitational waves. In international news, we'll talk about the role that ESA played in that detection. And then in latest in tech, we'll chat a bit about Elon Musk and some of SpaceX's future endeavors, as well as a recent satellite that they put up on another pre-flown rocket. And then we'll have Coming Soon to Space in Coming Soon to Space. Jack, take it away. Latest from Washington.
All right. So, like you said, there's three main things I want to talk about for latest from Washington. So the first thing is sort of an update on a previous story that we talked about. So if you remember in Adelaide, when we were covering what was going on at the International Astronautical Congress, a couple weeks ago, one of the big stories that came out was that NASA officials were talking to Russian officials about potentially collaborating on this deep space gateway. Now that has sort of been an assumption from the start that there would be an international component to the deep space gateway, but there was never anything set in stone as to who was going to build what was going to be the procedure for developing these international partnerships. Was it going to take the shape of the International Space Station Agreement, which was pretty set in stone from the beginning, or if this would be an evolving process where stakeholders would be brought in along the way. And what it looks like is that it's sort of going down the route that the ISS did, where you had a group of countries at the beginning who agreed to work on this project, and it mainly remained between those countries for the entire existence of the program. Jim Green, the director of NASA's Planetary Science Division, told attendees of a meeting called the Lunar Exploration Analysis Group, the LIGO, on October 11th, that they were in talks with Russia, Roscosmos, to develop lunar experiments and components for future Russian missions, which would lay the groundwork then for developing a space station in cislunar space, the area around the moon. And so the idea here is that Russia currently has 4 missions planned, Luna 25, 26, 27, and 28. Going up, I think the first 25 is going up in 2019, or at least expected to. The other 3 missions will be 2021 through 2024 at determined increments. And that NASA has now been brought into the fold on some of these missions on developing some of the technology to, one, get the components and the experiments there, but then also develop what sort of rovers, landers, or orbiters these Luna missions are going to entail. So this is actually a very nice step forward, especially tailing off of some of the comments made at the National Space Council hearing on October 5th.
As far as the international cooperation piece?
Yeah, because there was a very big component of the NSPOC meeting that was about not involving the international community, which from people in the space policy community we sort of got taken aback by that, just because
was it taken aback, or was it more of an eye roll, right? Like,
I think it maybe it was a bit of column A, a little bit of column B, because the expectation within the space policy community is that there will be an international component. That's just how we've done things for 30 years.
That's what I'm saying. You know, I mean, we're still relying on Russian Soyuz capsules for transportation and whatnot. I believe that's even what Peggy Whitson just wrote down in her last. Yeah, it's not like there's any confusion within NASA or within the policy space surrounding it that we'll be working with these people, not just now but in the future. I mean, unless they're really talking about a grotesque grotesque funding for space, which even then I would argue it's still not the best solution. I'm still saying increase NASA's budget, but I wouldn't argue that that is the optimal solution for increasing our capabilities in space. But unless they're arguing that, I don't really see how they think that this massive future that they have planned in space is actually feasible.
Yeah, it certainly is not. I mean, unless they want to give us about 5% of the federal budget, but they're not going to do that. I mean, unless the rest of the federal budget goes away. But
once again, I'd be hesitant to give NASA 5% of the federal budget.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, there's a point in which you sort of maximize your potential with the current organizational structure of NASA. I mean, the difference between 3 and 4% might not be as much as the difference between 0.5 and 1%.
0.5, 1, 0.5, 1.5.
Yeah.
1.5, I think, is kind of where they cap out, if I'm being honest. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah, I think we could do our own independent analysis if we really wanted.
Yes.
But so back to the Russia story. The one of the project scientists, actually the deputy project scientist for the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which is the orbiter around the moon that takes all those great photos of the lunar surface, Noah Petro, the deputy project scientist, gave a presentation on October 10th, and in it he said that quote, "We are looking forward to cooperating with any future mission of any size to the moon." So there is a need within the scientific community to go back to the moon. Let's not forget that when it comes to exploration, there is the robotic and the human side. The human side, there has been many arguments over moon versus Mars, moon then Mars, no moon, maybe Mars, orbiting Mars, all the different architectures that are out there. But let's remember, something that's a lot more cost effective and a lot more immediate are the robotic missions. So people like Noah Petro from LRO, Jim Green,
I was gonna say,
is they're wanting to go back to the moon to do the science that they really haven't been able to do because of the stigma around lunar exploration, because of the Apollo program. We did not find out everything we could about the moon in the 5 years that Apollo was flying. The 3 years that Apollo. Yeah, no. We figured everything else out about the moon. But using the moon as sort of a catalyst for international partnership also increases the chances of success for deep space human exploration missions. So this development in our overarching story of Russia-U.S. space relations we've taken a good turn working with the Russians on, or at least talking to the Russians about working on some of their robotic missions to the moon in the immediate future, in the next 4 years.
Wow.
But yeah, so that's that story. So kind of moving on from there. So friend of the show, Cody Nipfer, who is also a colleague of mine. We together actually also just wrote a paper, or in part of a larger paper, book, even you could call it, about the space security. So it's called the Space Security Index. We both contributed a couple chapters to this index. And so Cody actually put out an article in the Space Review. If you remember, the Space Review it's an academic, I guess sub-academic level paper. I've published in the Space Review before, but it's basically a way for people in the space community to get their ideas out to the rest of the community and those that follow the community in a very timely fashion, without really having to go through that major peer review process, but having the academic background to potentially do that in the future.
It's a great DC piece of media. I think.
If you are,
go ahead.
Yeah, if you are in DC, or even if you aren't in DC but have an interest in space policy, the Space Review is a great resource. They really put out 4 or 5 articles a week. So it's very manageable to keep up with, and it goes over a whole range of topics, from lunar exploration to Europa to James Webb to other deep space telescopes. It goes over a bunch of, and also touches on some of the cultural aspects too. So it talks about recent books or movies that have come out or documentaries, and sort of relates them to the overall themes going on in space policy right now. So Cody put out this paper that I read earlier today, called "Why Should We Go? Reevaluating the Rationales for Human Spaceflight in the 21st Century." And it's a great premise for the paper. Basically, it starts off saying, it's been 56 years since Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space. Why do we keep wanting to send humans to the moon? Why do we want to keep sending humans? Do we want to send humans to Mars? Like, what's the rationale behind this? Because in Yuri Gagarin's time, in Neil Armstrong's time, the idea of sending humans to space, it was a political maneuver. It was all international politics. It had really not much to do with the science that they would be doing there. Other than, I think, one of the Apollo astronauts, I think Gene Cernan was the only one who was a scientist before he was an astronaut. Whereas all of the other ones were Air Force pilots, Army pilots, or NASA test pilots before they became astronauts, and then they became some level of scientist. So it was very much a military geopolitical maneuver, whereas today the recent class of astronauts, they're all scientists first. There's the one that was a Navy SEAL turned doctor turned physicist, but there's the astronaut corps of today is different from the astronaut corps of 56 years ago. So Cody goes into talking about the rationales, the previous rationales for space exploration by humans, the budget context, as well as the cultural context, and sort of goes on to talk about what would we need in the 21st century to get humans into space. Obviously, that has been the focus of the National Space Council. That has been the focus of national space policy since H.W. Bush it's been pretty official human, U.S. space policy to get humans into space, and even well before that. So he asked the question, what does this mean for human spaceflight in the coming decades? And, of course, it's possible that we see a growth in human space exploration from a commercial standpoint. I
was just going to say, how much do you think, because that is the differentiator from now and 40 years ago, is that commercial space companies, I wouldn't say they're there, but they're close, 10-ish years, within 10 years close of actually putting a human in space, which is, once again, different from what we're talking about humans potentially going to Mars and stuff like that. But even just putting a human in space and making sure that things are space ready. as far one interesting way that this topic could go is, what sort of is the incentive for sending humans from that business perspective, right? At what point does that even start to wear off in terms of people just wanting to go and making money off of people just wanting to go? Are there other business cases outside of that sort of general entertainment and touristy use case?
I mean, I would, from my experience in the space policy sphere, there really isn't much of a reason to send humans. Humans are evolutionarily designed to survive on Earth. We can't really go other places without finding negative consequences. Right. And so that's something that Cody goes into at the end of his paper, asking, is there a singular answer to the question of why? Why do we send humans? Is it because we want to explore? Is it because we want to make money from the commercial aspect? Is it because we want to show power over other countries? You could say yes to any of those questions and still be right. But there's no singular answer to why we send humans. Even the answer of, well, we're explorers, we want to go into the unknown, still leaves something to be desired. Because what are we exploring? There has to be a reason. I mean, people did not come to the quote New World, to the Western Hemisphere for any noble goal other than I want to find an easier way to get to India, or I want to find the next place to mine and harvest gold.
Resources.
It's always about
economic reasons. Some people did just want to get out and escape.
Yes, there are, but there's never a single reason people go to explore the unknown. And that's, I think, the crux of this entire argument for human space exploration is human space exploration means a million things to a million different people. Now, across the board, people can agree that, Apollo was a great moment in human history, that it was a technological achievement, that humans walked on another celestial body for the first time in history. Mm-hmm. But there's no follow-up. There's no answer to why should we go again? We did it. Why go again? So that we can say that we did it too, that it's not just our grandparents. But what does that set up as a precedent?
Well, I mean, there are reasons to send both humans and robots. I mean, if you're kind of pulling back from just the commercial, right? If you're talking about mission wise, there is certainly reasons. And as far as a corporate case, one could argue that many of these companies will once again be consolidated. I would wager a bet that within 20 to 30 years, when SpaceX is the prime contractor for the Mars mission, which is the only way they're getting to Mars, by the way, that
you're writing a really fine line in that statement right there. Wow.
Right. Yeah. I know, right? Just you don't know where I sit on that. But yeah, in 20 to 30 years, when that happens, one could easily see them buying up these other companies that are attempting to do tourism, and having real struggles with it, and just combining that money to have easier tourism, cheaper tourism, while also executing missions for the government, and then having the combination of both of those funding streams. That's how I see human spaceflight, both from the tourist and the mission perspective, continuing throughout the next several decades. I could just be bullshit.
At the center of your argument is that there is a cost incentive, or there's a profit incentive.
Well, there's a profit incentive in that SpaceX will know how to do it extremely cheaply at that point, and they can subsidize some of it using some of their government funding, or even subsidize some of it. So some of their internal research and development funding using both. I can see that those sort of funding chains helping each other out, and that's when you get more prevalent human spaceflight.
There's going to be a point in which the primary space contractor, I will not say that it will be SpaceX, it will be someone, but they will subsidize space flight. There will be an artificial lowering of the cost of human spaceflight based on the amount of need there is for access to space in the coming years.
Yes.
And I would say that's the direction that we're going, assuming things remain on this trajectory. The problem I always try to bring up is that we're in a very interesting period right now, a period of unprecedented growth in the space industry. If we had followed the boom and bust cycle of commercial scientific exploration of the last 150 years, SpaceX would have already been defunct in 2011, far before they even launched the first reusable Falcon 9. But we're in this...
We're dealing with longer timelines, though.
We're in this weird twilight zone. We're in the twilight zone where nothing matters, but there's all this excellent technological expansion, and we see that with SpaceX, we see that with Blue Origin, we see that with, even with the old contractors, the Boeings and Lockheed Martins developing things like the Vulcan rocket. I don't know if it's sustainable. I don't know if we're going to continuously see this growth for the next 20 to 30 years to set up a situation where you have a company like, say, SpaceX, that takes the development of a rocket or an engine or some sort of technology for military use and double dips and uses it for commercial. You get a situation like Boeing had in the mid-1900s with the KC-135 being adapted for civilian use with the Boeing 707. I could certainly see that happening with space exploration and specifically human tourism of space, but until there is that consistent funding, common theme among our panelists from the NSPOC hearing last week or 2 weeks ago, until there's that consistent funding, I don't see this as a sustainable future for the space business. There's only so much space, and there's only so much room for growth right now.
Right?
Yeah, that's there's only so much to do too. So there's three confining factors. There's only so much budget, there's only so much physical space to do things, and there's only so much to do. When we start getting into planetary resources, asteroid mining, capturing rogue asteroids and mining them for resources, sending human tourists around the moon, which I would even wager now, even if it happened in the next 5 years, would not become a lucrative business for another decade after that. That even as those things progress now, we're going to want to see immediate returns where immediate returns are not possible.
But that's exactly the problem. Space is too big and has timelines potentially on too grand of a scale to adhere to our sort of current business timeline paradigms, right? So that's because, I took a second to really analyze the statement that I said just a second ago where I said, space, there's not that much to do. There's plenty to do in space. Technology and business paradigms just can't advance at a decent rate in order for those businesses to become profitable, based on how long it takes to develop the technology to effectively do anything in space, right? Because there's just so many factors to worry about. So what it really takes is us becoming an extremely advanced technological society before really being able to have businesses making money and have a true economy within space. So
yeah. I guess my last point is going to be that. I remember seeing this post. I can't remember if it was. Do you remember Tumblr?
I do remember
that thing from like 2007. I can't remember if it was a post on there, if it was Twitter or something, where someone was like, imagine a point in the future where someone bemoans having to go to the moon for business. That it was, I guess I have to go to the moon today. And there's this sort of expectation that with the way that technology is advancing, that somehow we're going to transcend the physical barriers between us and the rest of space. You know, a trip to the moon is...
Even got that warp drive.
Yeah, I mean, even under the best of circumstances, even with technology that is, let's even say, just at or twice as good as we have it today, getting to the moon still would take 12 hours if you launched at the right time. Like going to the moon for business would not be I guess I have to commute today. It's I guess I have to fly to Australia today.
Right.
It's not going to be, in any point in the near future, going to be a efficient or easy mode of transportation. But that's I guess the fun of it is that there are challenges ahead of us,
right,
in space exploration.
Outside of some breakthrough, outside of some completely miraculous, and not just breakthrough. When I say breakthrough, I don't mean someone gets creative and invents a new technology. I mean a brand new physical discovery that allows us to do something incredible, right? It challenges the current theories on relativity and, just and a number of physical laws. Space is going to operate on a very long timeline, and we need to, if we are going to be successful and getting back to the point, send humans in a way that is good for business, odds are it's going to take us modifying and even just finding new business paradigms. That's way more feasible than coming up with the technology to even get to the moon in, a few hours.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, even if it's just a few hours, you got to get acclimated to the climate, the new gravity. Like, come on. Like, a trip to the moon, even if it took a couple hours, you'd probably need a day of rest and relaxation before you could even do anything on the surface.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's Cody. You wrote a great article, and we'd love to have you on the show. I mean, you obviously got us to talk for about 20 minutes on this. So
yeah. It's an interesting subject matter. I'm sure we could talk more. Was that it for latest in Washington?
The last thing that I wanted to bring up from latest in Washington is that there is a new caucus in the House of Representatives. This was announced 4 days ago as of recording this, so 6 days from you listening to this, that a NASA caucus has took flight in the U.S. House. 5 of the members, including Bill Posey, Kathy Castor, Charlie Crist, Elsie Hastings, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz from Florida. The other 2 members of the actually, no, it's not 2. But the leaders of this caucus are Steve Knight, Republican from California, and Marcy Kaptur, Democrat from Ohio. The 5 members from Florida, plus 18 others make up the new NASA caucus. It is sort of unexpected that both expected and unexpected. So with the growth of the National Space Council's purview over national space policy, I kind of expected there to be some sort of grouping of members of Congress in support of NASA. But I mean, this is a NASA caucus has existed in the past. Space exploration caucuses have existed in the past, and generally they align with times of increased interest for space exploration or development of space technologies. And this is just the latest iteration. How long this lasts, how often they meet, how many meetings they have a year that are open to the public is completely unknown at this point, but with the increase in the National Space Council, and also cited by Representative Steve Knight, that the upcoming 50th anniversary of the Apollo landings is coming up, with all of that sort of coinciding in the next couple of years, that we could see a very active NASA caucus. So we will keep you up to date as to what they will be doing, as well as some other caucuses that may or may not be in the works. You didn't hear that from me.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Send all letters to Jack.
just at me on Twitter. I'll tell you everything.
Okay, anyway, moving on to the space news highlight of the week. And I'm going to try and hit all of these plot beats really quickly because we have about 20 minutes left. So our ability to detect gravitational waves has once again impacted the way that that we're understanding the universe. For the first time, NASA scientists have detected light tied to a gravitational wave event, thanks to two merging neutron stars in the galaxy NGC 4993. And that was located about 130 million light years from Earth in the constellation Hydra. So they found it in Hydra. That's kind of interesting.
Hail Hydra.
Once again, all letters and death threats to Jack. Nick Spencer almost got killed for that recently, and after writing a very good book. But that's a topic for another day. But this is being hailed as one of the biggest events ever witnessed in astrophysics. As I'm sitting here talking about Hydra in Marvel Comics. So keep in mind, neutron stars are the crushed leftover cores of massive stars that previously exploded as supernovas long ago. Neil deGrasse Tyson actually has a great episode, I believe it was on the Great Courses, where he covered them. And I think he did an episode of Cosmos where he described them as well. I think he just kind of went over like the different types of stars. So you can see all of that for the in-depth information. But the merging stars likely had masses between about 10 and 60% greater than that of our sun, but they were no wider apparently than Washington D.C. So they're crushed and flattened, but they still have huge masses. This particular pair whirled around each other in sort of a spiral fashion, about hundreds of times per second, which produced gravitational waves at that same frequency. And as they drew closer and orbited faster, the stars eventually broke apart and merged, producing both a gamma ray burst and a rarely seen flare-up called a kilonova. So this is more than just a cool event and something that looked really cool. But one, it's the first time we've detected this sort of thing where we detected a gravitational wave pointed towards this phenomena and then saw the light coming off of it. But the discovery means that we're truly in this new age of astronomy, one in which scientists can listen for ripples in space-time and figure out where to look in the universe to see this kind of amazing phenomena. It's gravitational waves being the signature of a particular signal. So this discovery in particular was announced Monday, today, the day that we're recording this, October 16th, at a news conference, and has already been the topic of about 3,500 scientific reports. Furthermore, this solved a long-standing mystery in astrophysics, and this is the part that I think most folks can kind of relate to. Not only is this sort of a detection mechanism, but the neutron-star collision created a cloud of radioactive waste the size of our solar system. They estimate that there is about 200 Earth masses worth of gold and 500 Earth masses worth of platinum sitting in this cloud. So...
Wait, this just in. The Trump administration has announced a recovery mission.
Right. Why does NASA has 20% of our GDP? What happened? We just talked about this 5 minutes ago.
That might be a little bit more than 20% of the GDP.
Right. No kidding. Well, I'm saying that Trump funded it to get us there. But it's being predicted that the material that material was flung from the explosion at, get this, about a third of the speed of light. So gold and platinum just flying from this massive explosion at about a third of the speed of light, similar to interactions that help to build other stellar systems, much like our own, except this is a little bigger and a bit more massive. Once again, it's a dramatic demonstration of how astrophysics is being transformed by humanity's newfound ability to detect gravitational waves, these sort of ripples in the fabric of space-time that are created when massive objects spin around each other and finally collide. Gravitational waves are the only real messenger expected when things like black holes collide. And we've only measured 4 of them prior to this. The big news was in 2015 when we measured the first one. But following these 4 measurements, scientists across the world began searching with ground and space telescopes for possible luminous bursts that are linked to the gravitational wave. So we're discovering more about this physical phenomena and more about events that are related to them, which is just, it's this whole new, I dare to say, branch of astrophysics that's opening up. So you can expect to see all types of new research to come. So once again, LIGO was the detector that picked up the gravitational waves from the event. That's been the detector that we've been using. And it's the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory experiment in the U.S., and it's certainly going to have significantly more results. So
I remember when LIGO made that discovery in 2015. It was like, oh my god, this thing is amazing. It's discovering all these things we never thought we could see. And now it's kind of like, LIGO made another discovery.
Oh, here we go. Fifth one.
It's just like with TRAPPIST-1. It's like, oh great, we found another Earth-like system. Oh boy, let it run the news cycle once or twice. Like this seems to be something that will become a lot more consistent, or maybe not consistent, but a lot more often, that we're going to be making what maybe 20 years ago would have been an earth-shattering discovery. That's just it's just part of our existence as we make amazing astronomical discoveries that teach us more about the universe.
It's not just the fact that we detect it. Sure, detecting it was really impactful in doing things like demonstrating some of Albert Einstein's theorems, as well as helping to perfect certain models. But the fact this time that we were actually able to associate it, tie it together with another massive event that was happening, with older detection mechanisms that we could see, like right after the gamma rays and gravitational waves were detected on Earth, NASA's Swift Gamma Ray Burst Observatory, which orbits high above the Earth, returned some very interesting results in the form of that bright source of ultraviolet light with no X-rays, right? And getting events like that, having events like that coming in and being able to associate all of these sort of known things that we always see with the signal, the impact, the ratio of gravitational waves helps us overall in terms of detecting events that are happening out in the universe, characterizing those events, and then understanding more and more about the nature of the universe itself and just space-time. So it's more impactful than the ones that we've discovered before for that reason. So, once again, this research is going to continue. People are gravitational waves is, dare I say, the new hotness in space. Maybe that's what we should name this section.
I guess they're really gravitating towards it.
Moving on to international news. Which is actually a part of this. So it's important to note that this is always a worldwide effort. And this amazing discovery was made possible by a terrific collaboration of thousands of people working in different observatories and experiments worldwide. And what's interesting, and this is the part that makes it international news, is that ESA's integral satellite the satellite is actually called Integral, recently played a crucial role in discovering the flash of gamma rays linked to the gravitational waves released by that collision. So one of the two detectors of LIGO, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory in the U.S., recorded the passage of the gravitational waves. And when that occurred, the folks over at Integral realized that they were witnessing something historic when they saw the notification of Fermi and LIGO's detection appear on their internal network at almost the same time. And ordinarily, an alert from only one of the three gravitational wave detectors would not awaken curiosity so suddenly, but the coincidence with the gamma ray blast detected from space prompted the LIGO Virgo scientists to look again. And it later appeared that both LIGO detectors had recorded the gravitational waves, as we just talked about, and Virgo produced actually a smaller response. This is the Italian satellite that was actually being run by them, and by combining all three sets of measurements, they were able to actually to actually pinpoint the source of that disruption. So ESA played a big role in this as well. And about a half a day after the detection, scientists at various optical observatories, including the European Southern Observatory's telescopes in Chile, which we talked about before, spotted the light coming from the core of the galaxy NGC 4993. So they added and were able to further confirm the actual event occurring. And with the position of that source known, a large number of observatories and other sensors just continue to look at it for several days afterwards. But after the initial detection of the blast, the Integral satellite observed it for about 5.5 more days. No further gamma rays were detected, which is a very important fact in understanding how the neutron stars actually merge. So there's a number of papers that are out about that as well. And there's an extensive follow-up campaign that actually has revealed signals across the spectrum, first in the ultraviolet that we discussed earlier, and then in the visible and infrared bands, then in the X-ray. So and eventually in the radio wavelength. So it's further confirming things that we thought we knew about this kind of event occurring that came from that Integral satellite. So what's sort of the future for this? When the LIGO, so with high sensitivity to gamma rays and almost full sky coverage for brief events, Integral is going to be one of the best astronomical facilities for keeping an eye on these type of gamma ray bursts. And when the LIGO Virgo sensors start their observations again with improved sensitivity in late 2018, it's going to be crucial that as many gamma ray satellites as possible are active to check on those gravitational wave detections. Meanwhile, ESA is going to be working on the next generation of gravitational wave experiments, taking the quest to space with the LISA, the Laser Interferometer Space Antenna, not the personal computer from the 80s. That's actually going to be planned for launch in 2034, and it's going to be sensitive. LISA is going to be sensitive to gravitational waves of lower frequency than those detected with any of the terrestrial instruments that we're using today. These are released by the clashes of even more exotic cosmic objects, so supermassive black holes, which sit at the center of the galaxies and things like that. And they have masses millions to billions times larger than the stellar massive black holes that are currently detected by LIGO. So that's ESA trying to outshine us a bit. No, we'll definitely play a big part in those experiments as well. So looking forward to it. Moving on, just trying to hit the plot beats. We're making good time here. Latest in tech, we have SpaceX, of course. So a couple of pieces of news in SpaceX and Elon Musk land. The first being SpaceX once again launches their third pre-flown rocket with EchoStar-SES satellite. This kind of goes back to what you were talking about, Jack, in terms of some space news. Just us saying, "Oh, again."
Oh, great! SpaceX launches another pre-flown rocket. This is the third one, right?
This is the third pre-flown rocket that they've launched. With a previously used first stage booster. This was on October 11th. It carried a geostationary satellite for customers EchoStar and SES. I believe they've been serving EchoStar for a while now.
EchoStar was one of their first contracts. Yep, if I remember correctly, back in 2011.
I believe so. Yeah. So this one carried EchoStar. The Falcon 9 rocket lifted off at about 6:53 p.m. Eastern from NASA Kennedy Space Center in Florida at the beginning of a 2-hour launch window. Gwynne Shotwell, SpaceX president and chief operating officer, said in March that the company would likely use as many as 6 pre-flown boosters in 2017 to ease pressure on rocket manufacturing for the year. So this is 3. They've got 3 to go to meet that.
Yeah, we got like 2.5 months left, right?
Yeah, plenty of time. If we can start launching launching more than one a month, I'll be impressed. But I actually think that part of that is due to availability of launch pads and launch windows and things like that. But part of it is just logistics and funding, and they're not going to do it just to show that they can. At least I don't see them doing that at this juncture. So, SES has one more satellite launching this year. It's a joint venture satellite with the Luxembourg government called GovSat-1, but has not yet said if it will fly new or pre-flown. It's bad that I saw this and was just like, But it's good that this is the third one. This means that you want it to become routine, right?
Yeah.
Being bored is good at this point. We're kind of bored when we see astronauts are going up to the International Space Station again. But that's an amazing feat, right? Like that.
Let's not forget that's human beings going to an orbital facility the size of a football field in space.
Right. And this is a company launching reused rockets to actually put objects in orbit, which is an amazing feat. Yeah. So this is one of those cases where being bored is good. Okay. So next up, speaking of SpaceX, Elon Musk.
He did an AMA, right? One of those Ask Me Anythings.
He did an AMA, an Ask Me Anything on Reddit on Saturday, which is October 14th.
Yes.
He got very candid online and answered some questions, primarily about the prototype and about the prototype for the methane-powered Raptor engine, which is used in the upper stages of both the Falcon 9 and the Falcon Heavy, as well as he was talking about the bipropellant rocket engine, as well as taking questions, of course, about his Mars in 2024?
Yeah, his big Falcon rocket.
Mm. Yeah. So.
So what did you think?
Sorry, that was my printer.
Your printer decided to become sentient.
I was literally just waiting for it to stop. So,
but yeah, so I took a couple looks at this AMA. Granted, I am not the best person at Reddit. I lurk. I like some of the memes that people post, especially if they have things to do with space. But I've never really gotten to AMAs, but I took a look at Elon Musk's, and it seems like he was covering content that probably would have been asked in a Q&A section at the IAC. I know he did, I think, because he did one last year. I think he did a Q&A at some point during IAC. But this was an opportunity for him to really put the math that they're doing at SpaceX onto digital paper. And telling people about, this is how many pounds of thrust that we have, and this is the calculation for trajectories that we're doing. And I don't know much of the technical stuff, but is that sort of the essence of it? Was that he was answering questions on this topic that he brought up at the IAC?
Yeah. So he was, and he was making it clear, basically that he was thinking about some of the things that the internet didn't necessarily think that he was thinking of, like, the difficulty of scaling the Raptor up to 170 tons, and they talked a little bit about the design and how they're extremely focused on reliability. I mean, he wasn't, I'm not going to sit here and pretend this was like an engineering lecture, but I think what he was trying to do here was, one, not quell expectations, but quell skepticism. Make folks know that they are thinking about these concerns, that they're trying to address concerns like rocket travel. Once again, the scalability of the Raptor design, the notion of putting folks into space in the first place. He had a quote here saying the advantage of getting somewhere in 30 minutes by rocket instead of 15 hours by plane will be negatively affected but also you might die is on the ticket. So he just wanted people to know. I thought that was a funny line from him.
You might die. That's really funny.
Right. That sort of the internet assumption that, SpaceX just thinks that they're going to do this and they're just probably going to kill a lot of people isn't a notion that they are taking lightly. That they are extremely concerned with safety, but they still think they can do this ambitious thing. That seemed to be the overall tone of it. And once again, it was just clarifications, not to the level of an engineering class clarifications, but more to the level of a businessman who wants to actually conduct these operations.
Yeah.
So, you guys can go online and read it. We'll post the link in the show notes. But without further ado, I think we're going to go ahead to coming soon to space.
Yeah. So I think we have 2 things to cover in coming soon to space.
We've got 3. I added 1.
Oh, okay. We have 3.
Yes.
So the first thing, so we'll do my thing, we'll do your thing, and then let's cover the Last Jedi thing at the end.
Okay.
So the first thing is the Planetary Society, an organization that I hold very near and dear to my heart. You should become a member if you are not already. They are hosting, I'm helping plan this. We're hosting a reception at the Library of Congress. In the show notes, you'll find a link to the description of the event. It's going to be in the James Madison room of the James Madison room of the Madison building of the Library of Congress, to talk about, after Cassini, what's next for the outer planets and outer planet exploration. It starts at 3 p.m., goes until 5. So yeah, I know it's during the workday, but if you're able to make it, it's going to be a great presentation. We have a bunch of people who are coming from all the different space companies and research institutions to talk about some of their research, some of the things that they're building, and what's next, the prospective missions to the outer planets, and what we can hope to learn there. And then afterward, hopefully I will have more information. If you check the Ad Astra Facebook page or the Planetary Society of Washington, D.C. Facebook page, you will find out more about post-reception events that we are hopefully going to be putting together. Heck, even by the time that we release this episode, there will be some information. So be sure to check that out, or shoot me an email or a Facebook message, and I will let you know what's going on.
Cool. Sounds good. So turns out I have 2 things, actually. That's not what I thought you were announcing.
Boy, we got 4 things to talk about and coming soon to space.
All right. So a couple of things. The first, there is an Astronomy on Tap event if you are in the Washington, D.C. area on October 30th. I think both of the hosts of Ad Astra will be there.
October 30th? What day is that?
That is a Monday, on the night that we usually record, so we may
have to record on the 29th.
we may record on the 29th or just earlier on the 30th than we usually do. But apparently this is the 2-year orbitversary, as they put on their Facebook, of Astronomy on Tap DC at DC9 Nightclub over, it's close to the 14th and U Street Northwest area, if you guys are familiar with DC. Astronomy on Tap is one of my favorite events, space-related events to go to that are regular within DC. One of my favorites. It's always packed with people and always has great guests. This time around, they'll be talking about infant galaxies and alien atmospheres in terms of the James Webb Space Telescopes. I love how they put launching 2019 with an exclamation mark on here because it was just delayed. The Tyranny of the Rocket Equation, which actually sounds like an interesting one. And then they apparently have a musical guest, Sarah Stardust. And apparently they're having a costume contest. So bring your best space costume. And after today, I might have to rock the Black Panther costume again. I don't know if you saw that trailer. Holy shit. You can bleep that out, but I had to say that.
I think yeah. I will be doing, I think my costume for this year is going to be sexy Carl Sagan.
Nice.
And the only reason that it's going to be sexy is because it's Carl Sagan. Okay. Or maybe I'll wear jorts. Who knows? It'll be a game time decision.
It probably will be a game time decision, and we'll be recording late, so whatever. One more announcement before we get to Star Wars. My cousin is starting a podcast. Camille Stewart, a local DC lawyer, she is starting a podcast dedicated to sharing the inspiring stories of trailblazers who have made their mark by going against traditional career trajectory expectations and creating their own path. Camille, get a shorter mission statement on each episode.
Sounds like a lawyer to me.
Right, exactly. On each episode, they're going to be introducing listeners to a trailblazer who is quote unquote rocking it in their respective industries. So they had their premiere on October 10th. They can be found on iTunes, much like us, as well as your other favorite podcatchers. The name of the podcast is Hustle Over Entitlement. So tune into that when you guys get a chance. And now, without further ado, Star Wars.
The Last Jedi.
So if you haven't watched the trailer,
you need to watch the trailer now. Unless you're a person who doesn't like watching trailers for movies. And then at that point, as always, I'm Jack, and this is Newton and Ad Astra. Anyway, for all of us who are still listening, let's talk Star Wars. So is Rey turning to the dark side?
No. So give me your overall take on the trailer first.
Okay, and I agree with you. She is not turning to the dark side. I think it is the most Hollywood trailer for a Star Wars movie that I've seen ever. And I mean, Rogue One had some pretty Hollywood take or Hollywood spin on it, kind of having scenes that weren't actually in the movie at the end or the end product.
I can almost bet that a number of the scenes that we saw in there will not be in the final product.
Yeah. I mean, especially some of they seem more like filler scenes of starfighters flying by and of, people just kind of walking and talking and stuff. But I think that I really like the trailer, and it created just enough mystery around things for people to ask that question of, is Rey turning to the dark side, without actually believing it, but kind of deep down being like, maybe they're going to go in that direction. I mean, episode 5, I guess everyone's already been comparing episode 7 and episode 4. So it's only natural for us to compare the sequel to episode 7 to the sequel of episode 4, episode 5. So I know a lot of people are expecting there to be some parallels story-wise, but if we remember back to episode 5, at the end, Luke is not in a great place. So it would almost be an expectation that at the end of the sequel to a more or less reboot of the Star Wars trilogy, that there would be a defining moment at the end that might take Rey down a different path than Luke did. Maybe that's what we should be questioning is Luke even, or is Rey of the same mindset as Luke. I would even say weaker. I mean, maybe Luke made the wrong decision at the end of episode 5. Like, how do we know? Maybe the Jedi way was wrong the whole time.
Well, I'm going to go with the Jedi. I'm going to go with that might be the moral of the movie. Not that it was wrong the entire time, but it doesn't need to progress any further. Like that the Jedi, that there is no more Jedi after this movie. At least that's where I think they're headed. Overall, I thought the trailer itself was amazing. I see the comparisons that they're drawing with Empire, but I don't necessarily know. They're going to go in knowing that the audience is going in with that in mind. I can see them trying to take it a different direction because one to keep it fresh. I think it was a good idea to keep it so closely to keep Force Awakens so closely mapped to A New Hope, because it was a look. Give the audience the Star Wars field. Bring this audience bring Star Wars into the new century, in an appropriate way, as opposed to what happened in the knots.
In the movies we shall not mention.
In the movies that shall not be mentioned, and allow audiences to get a bit of what they've been missing for decades. But I don't know if they're going to continue effectively mirroring the movies of the past. I mean, The Force Awakens is almost a mirror of A New Hope.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
well, granted, I didn't really see that, but when people started pointing it out, I could see that there were similarities. But I think that's the point of The Last Jedi, is that, or I guess the point of this whole sequel trilogy, is that there is a repetition of history. That there, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
I can see them moving away from all of that. I'm not saying this movie isn't going to be darker than Force Awakens, but I think that it's all going to be hypothetical right now. I don't think the trailer really gave away that much of the plot behind the movie.
Other than Porgs being like the cutest thing ever.
Well, yeah, exactly.
That was a big spoiler.
Yeah. At the end of the day, with the way that Disney does films, you never know how anything in this film is going to happen until you see it. Like, there were things that I just loved seeing in that movie, but I have no idea how they're going to happen. I have no idea whether or not they're going to be a massive exchange or just a brief moment. And once again, we don't even know if some of them will show up in the film, right? Like, I like seeing Finn up and fighting in this trailer just as an overall thing. I don't know how big of a scene that's going to be. Is that something that happens right at the end? Is that a conflict that occurs throughout the movie? Who knows? All right.
So that was a really good point, Newton. I guess so. We're actually getting well above our time limit that we set for ourselves. I know this was supposed to be an hour-long podcast, but whatever. So I guess one final thought from me, and then final thought from you, and then we'll wrap up. So like I was saying, like I think that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. I think that the trailer didn't really tell us anything, but it is setting us up for a darker story than we have previously seen in recent Star Wars. I mean, Rogue One was really dark. I would even say, just from the trailer, it looks like it's going to have a much darker overtone than Revenge of the Sith did. And Revenge of the Sith, I would say, was a pretty dark film, especially with the way that it ends. I think the expectation is so much higher for The Last Jedi, not only because it's a new Star Wars movie, but also because the sequel is either the sequel to any of the Star Wars trilogies. The middle film has always either been the best movie ever or one of the worst movies ever. So that it has to find its place as in this sort of order, and has to live up to certain expectations, but not fall privy to shortcomings that have been seen previously in the Star Wars series. And that's not just talking about Attack of the Clones. I almost forgot the name of that movie because of how bad it is.
I blacked it out. What are you talking about? The Christmas special too? But yeah, I just kind of piggybacking on a little bit of that. This definitely has to be its own movie. I think I've tried to not pay as much attention, both in like just my daily news reading and even in podcasts that I listen to some of the things that are going on behind the scenes. I know there was a lot of discussion about that, but like I said, I try not to pay too much attention to that. I think overall this trailer was amazing. I think overall I don't really have that much on what's actually going to happen within this movie. Like I haven't read the synopsis or anything like that, nor do I intend on doing that. But yeah, I mean, good storytelling is going to win the day. I know Disney's heavily invested in this film. I hope that there are some dark overtones within the movie, but for the most part, it stays light. I tend to like Star Wars when it's light. Although Rogue One is just a completely different story. I love that movie, but it's
gray.
No, what if it's gray?
What if it's not we'll light out. Or the dark side? What if it's the Return of the Grey Knights?
Right. Well, I think that might even be part of the lesson behind this movie. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm excited. I'm pumped. I might like the teaser better than this actual
I could
trailer.
See that.
I really
the teaser was really good.
I thought it was really well done. Yeah, like that. They did. I remember for The Force Awakens, they had a really great teaser as well.
Yeah.
Like, you remember that? Like they had that whole thing with these characters. Yeah, they had this whole thing with these characters, and then the Millennium Falcon came out of nowhere, and they started pumping the Star Wars music, and you were just like, you leapt up out of your chair. At least that's what I did. But I kind of got that from the teaser for this movie as well, the one that starts out with Rey training and putting her hand on the ground. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just a me thing. But overall, I do like the fact that I don't know anything about what's happening in this movie.
I think this is the last trailer we get. I mean, with The Force Awakens, there will
be one. It's October. There will be.
Is there one more?
Trailer.
I mean, was there one more for The Force Awakens? They did a teaser. They did a full trailer.
I believe so.
And then I don't remember a second trailer. There might have been a recut, but I don't remember a second trailer.
Interesting.
So, I mean, this could very well be the last trailer for The Last Jedi.
There's usually a TV cut. There's usually like a TV... Because, like, this is going to be in previews. Like the trailer that we saw. And then there's usually at least one more TV spot or something to that effect,
but usually it's going to be footage we've already seen, or, like, similar enough footage that it's not really going to tell us anything new. So I'm not expecting anything substantial until we walk into the theater on December 15th.
Yeah, and once again, I might be out of country. So,
well, it sucks for you, but anyone who wants to...
Gotta see if I can get press passes.
If anybody wants to go watch Star Wars The Last Jedi with me, just get in contact with me and we'll set something up. But yeah, I guess, I mean, geez, we're at 100.
Yeah,
an hour and 20 minutes, basically. So just wrapping up. We talked about a lot of stuff today, but
Star Wars was the most important. And that thing that happened out in the universe 130 million years ago.
I guess my final note for the night is going to be to definitely check out the link to the fundraiser that I'm putting on for RAINN.
Yes.
We're at $60. I'm sure we're going to surpass the $100 mark that I set as the goal, and I will keep moving that up as we make more money. RAINN is an amazing organization. I have friends that work with them and for them, and they do awesome work. Please donate. It's important to me, to a lot of people. Do it. It's tax deductible. Like, what else do you need?
Or just do it.
Or also just like do it because you're not a shitty person.
Yeah. I like that version of every time. I think we swore more times on this podcast than any other podcast. It's been an angry several weeks.
Has
been.
Right? This isn't the angry. I remember the angry episode was pretty bad.
Oh God, yeah. We had several drinks before that and after that.
Yeah, go back to what was that episode like 4 or something like that. It was like the angry episode. Go back and listen to that, and you'll.
It was much later than that.
Was it
episode? Oh yeah, God, it was like 4 episodes ago. I know it feels like forever, but
no, it wasn't. Well, I guess we had one that was called the Angry Episode, or at least the working title of it was the Angry Episode. But yeah, I remember a couple weeks ago there was a really angry one too.
That one was
generally every month we go through a cycle of just being really angry, and then we kind of calm down and talk about space and feel happy about things, and then get really angry.
Someone does something else that. Yeah. Anyway,
so let's leave the people to whatever they're doing on their Wednesday. I hope everyone has a great day. Donate to RAINN, watch the Star Wars trailer, and write to your member of Congress and tell them that NASA funding is very important to you. As always, I'm Jack.
And I'm Newton.
Ad Astra.